You keep waiting for the right time, the right moment, the right season. You keep telling yourself, when I have more money, when I feel more confident, when I know exactly what to do, then I'll step out, then I'll start, then I'll take the risk. But let me tell you something. If you're always waiting for the right time, you'll always be waiting. Because the right time, you're looking for the one where everything is perfect, where there are no doubts, no fears, no uncertainties. It doesn't exist. What if the reason you feel stuck isn't because you don't have what you need, but because you're waiting for something that isn't coming? What if you're waiting for permission to do something God already gave you the ability to do? Think about it. How many times have you said, I'll do it when I'm ready, but somehow you never feel ready? You tell yourself, once I have more experience, once I know more, once I feel stronger, but the moment never comes. And do you know why? Because readiness isn't a feeling, it's a decision. You don't feel ready, you decide to move forward anyway. Some of the greatest things that have ever happened in history weren't because someone felt ready. They were because someone decided, I don't feel ready, but I'm stepping out anyway. The problem with waiting for the right time is that you miss the only time you've got, right now. You're so busy waiting for ideal conditions that you don't even realize that the opportunity is already in front of you. Imagine a farmer waiting for the right weather before planting seeds. He looks at the clouds and says, it looks like it might rain too much, so he waits. Then he says, it might not rain enough, so then he thinks, maybe I should wait until next season. And before he knows it, the whole year has passed and he hasn't planted a single thing. That's what happens when you wait for perfect conditions. You end up with nothing. You're waiting for a sign, but the fact that you have a dream, the fact that something is stirring in your heart, the fact that you feel called to do more, that is the sign. You are waiting for clarity, but clarity comes from movement, not from waiting. You don't need more time. You don't need more confirmations. You don't need everything to make sense. You need to start. Some of you have been sitting on a business idea for years, but you're waiting for the right market conditions. Some of you feel called to go back to school, but you're waiting for the right financial situation. Some of you know you need to have that difficult conversation, but you're waiting for the right emotional state. But let me tell you, the longer you wait, the harder it gets. Because every day you wait, you're reinforcing the lie that you're not ready. Every time you delay, you're teaching yourself that fear gets the final say. And I get it. Starting is scary. Moving forward when you don't have all the answers is uncomfortable. But do you really think fear is just going to disappear? Do you really think you'll wake up one day with zero hesitation? No, fear doesn't leave. You just learn how to move forward in spite of it. You keep telling yourself, one day I'll step out. But what if one day never comes? What if the future you're dreaming of depends on a decision you're refusing to make right now? You're waiting for everything to fall into place, but what if things won't fall into place until you take the first step? What if God is waiting on you to move before He reveals the next step? Stop praying for clarity when God is calling you to trust. Stop waiting for conditions to be perfect when the only thing God needs is your obedience. Stop delaying what you know you're called to do just because it's uncomfortable. You think you need to have everything figured out before you start, but sometimes God won't show you the whole picture because He wants to build your faith along the way. If He showed you everything at once, you'd either get overwhelmed or try to control the process. But when He only gives you one step at a time, it forces you to depend on Him. You don't need a perfect plan. You need faith. You don't need all the answers. You need obedience. You don't need to feel ready. You need to step out anyway. Some of you are stuck in a cycle of procrastination disguised as preparation. You keep telling yourself, I'm just getting ready, but let's be honest, you've been getting ready for years. At some point, you have to admit that preparation has become an excuse. At some point, you have to stop gathering information and start taking action. Think about how much time you spent researching, planning, and analyzing. Now think about how little time you spent actually doing. If preparation was the key, you'd be further along by now. The problem isn't that you're not prepared, it's that you're afraid. But fear is not a good enough reason to delay your destiny. Fear is not a good enough reason to waste your potential. Fear is not a good enough reason to stay stuck when God has called you forward. I know it's hard. I know it's uncomfortable, but what's harder? Living the rest of your life wondering what could have happened if you had just stepped out? Spending years watching other people do what you were called to do because you were too afraid to start? You don't want to look back one day and realize that the only thing standing between you and the life you were meant to live was your own hesitation. You don't want to waste another year waiting for the right moment when the only moment you've got is right now. It's time to move. It's time to step out. It's time to stop overthinking and start doing. Yes, it might not be easy. Yes, it might not go exactly as planned. Yes, there will be challenges along the way. But do you know what's worse than failure? Regret. Regret is worse than failure. Regret is worse than discomfort. Regret is worse than taking a risk and it not working out. Because even if you fail, at least you tried. Even if it doesn't work out the way you expected, at least you were obedient. Even if things don't go perfectly, at least you won't have to live with the question, what if? Some of you are afraid of failing, but have you considered that not trying at all is the biggest failure of all? You're so afraid of making the wrong decision that you've made no decision at all. But no decision is still a decision. Staying still is still a choice. And if you're not moving forward, you're moving backward. So what are you going to do? Are you going to keep waiting for perfect conditions that will never come? Are you going to keep letting fear dictate your future? Are you going to keep making excuses? Or are you finally going to take the step you've been avoiding? You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to feel 100% ready. You just have to decide that today is the day you stop waiting and start moving. You keep telling yourself that when the timing is right, when things are perfect, when all the pieces fall into place, then you'll move forward. But if you've been waiting, if you've been holding back, then you already know the truth. That moment never comes. It's always just out of reach. Every time you think you're getting close, something happens to make you second guess yourself. Another doubt creeps in, another challenge appears, and suddenly the right time gets pushed even further into the future. But what if that idea of perfect timing is the very thing keeping you stuck? What if you're not waiting on the right time, but the right time has been waiting on you? What if you've been looking for something that doesn't exist, and in the process you've been missing the opportunities that are right in front of you? Think about it. How many times have you put off something you knew you were supposed to do? How many times have you talked yourself out of stepping forward because you convinced yourself the conditions weren't quite right yet? You told yourself, I'll start when I have more money. I'll begin when I feel more confident. I'll take the risk when I have more support. But the moment never arrived the way you imagined. Because life doesn't wait. Seasons don't wait. Opportunities don't wait. You see, we have this illusion that life will slow down for us, that it will pause until we feel completely ready. But it doesn't work that way. Life keeps moving, time keeps passing, and while we're busy waiting for the right moment, the moment we had slips away. Some of the most successful people in history didn't wait for perfect conditions. They stepped out in the middle of uncertainty. They took action when it didn't make sense. They moved forward when they didn't have all the answers. You don't need to have everything figured out before you start. You just need to start. A lot of people say they're waiting for confirmation, waiting for a clear sign. But what if the fact that you have a dream, the fact that you feel called to do something is already confirmation enough? What if waiting isn't a sign of wisdom, but a sign of fear? Some of you have been waiting for the right time to fix that relationship, but every time the opportunity comes, you let it pass because it doesn't feel ideal. Some of you have been waiting to start that business, but you keep making excuses about why now isn't the time. Some of you have been waiting to take care of your health, but you convince yourself that you'll start when life gets less busy. But if not now, then when? The truth is, the right time will never come because there will always be something standing in your way. There will always be a reason to delay. There will always be an excuse to wait. Maybe you're waiting because you're scared of failure. You think that if you wait long enough, you'll finally feel sure enough, strong enough, prepared enough to guarantee success. But the truth is, no matter how long you wait, you will always have some doubt. No matter how much you prepare, you will always have some uncertainty. So if you're waiting for a time when you'll have zero fear, zero doubt, zero discomfort, that time will never come. You don't need the perfect moment. You just need faith to step into the moment you already have. Think about all the times you've seen someone take a leap and succeed, and you wondered, what made them different from me? It wasn't that they had all the answers. It wasn't that they had perfect conditions. It was that they stopped waiting. They understood that opportunity doesn't always come wrapped in certainty. Sometimes it comes in the form of risk. Sometimes it comes in the form of discomfort. Sometimes it comes in the form of a challenge that looks too big for you. But that's the point. If it were easy, if it were obvious, then everyone would do it. Maybe the fact that you feel resistance is a sign that it's exactly what you're supposed to do. Maybe the fact that you're nervous means it's important. Maybe the fact that you keep thinking about it, keep feeling it stir in your heart, keep getting reminded of it, isn't just a coincidence. You can keep waiting, or you can start moving. You can keep making excuses, or you can step into what's next. You can keep watching other people do what you were meant to do, or you can finally stop delaying and take action. The longer you wait, the more comfortable you become in your delay. The more you put it off, the easier it gets to justify staying where you are. And before you know it, days turn into weeks, weeks turn into months, and months turn into years. Years of waiting, years of wishing, years of wondering, what if? But it doesn't have to be that way. The time you're waiting for is now. The moment you've been looking for is already here. The opportunity you've been hoping for might not look like you expected, but that doesn't mean it isn't real. There will never be a time where you have complete certainty. There will never be a season where everything feels easy. There will never be a moment where you have no fear. But the difference between those who succeed and those who stay stuck isn't that they had perfect conditions. It's that they took action in imperfect ones. So the question isn't whether or not you'll ever feel completely ready. The question is whether or not you'll choose to move forward anyway. You keep waiting to feel ready. You keep telling yourself that once you have more confidence, once you know more, once you feel stronger, then you'll step out. But what if readiness isn't something you wait for? What if it's something you decide? Most people assume that readiness is a feeling. They think one day they'll wake up and suddenly feel brave enough, knowledgeable enough, strong enough to take the next step. but that moment never comes. And do you know why? Because readiness isn't about eliminating doubt. It's about moving forward despite it. You think you're waiting to feel prepared, but in reality, what you're really doing is avoiding discomfort. You're trying to bypass the messy part of the journey, the part where you have to step into the unknown, where you have to risk failure, where you have to push past fear. But there is no shortcut to growth. There is no version of success that doesn't require you to move before you feel completely ready. If readiness were a prerequisite for success, no one would accomplish anything great. Do you think the people who changed history felt ready when they started? Do you think the most successful people in the world waited until they were fully confident before they took action? No. They stepped out even when they were unsure. They took risks even when they had doubts. They understood that readiness wasn't a feeling, it was a decision. You don't feel ready and then start. You start and then you grow into readiness. Every time you hesitate, every time you tell yourself you're not ready yet, you reinforce the belief that you need more time. And the more you tell yourself that, the more you delay what you're called to do. But here's the truth. You are as ready as you'll ever be. You may not have all the answers, but you have enough to take the first step. You may not know exactly how things will turn out, but you have what you need to begin. You may not feel completely confident, but confidence isn't something you wait for. It's something you build through action. Confidence doesn't come from waiting, it comes from doing. Some of you have been waiting for a feeling that will never come. You keep telling yourself, I just need more time. But the time isn't the issue. The issue is your fear of failing. The issue is your fear of the unknown. The issue is that you're waiting for certainty in a world that will never offer it to you. You will never have all the answers. You will never know exactly how everything will play out, but you don't need to. You just need to trust that taking the first step will reveal the next one. You think that once you feel confident, then you'll move. But confidence is not the cause of action, it's the result. The more you move, the more you grow. The more you grow, the more confident you become. You can't think your way into readiness. You have to act your way into it. If you look back on your life, you'll realize that the moments that stretched you the most were the moments when you didn't feel ready, but you moved anyway. The times when you stepped out, even though you were scared. The times when you said yes, even though you weren't sure. And looking back, you probably realized that you were more ready than you thought. You probably see now that the fear you felt wasn't proof that you weren't ready. It was proof that you were stepping into something bigger than yourself. That's what growth feels like. It feels like uncertainty. It feels like discomfort. It feels like fear. But if you wait until those feelings go away, you'll never take the step you need to take. Readiness isn't about eliminating fear. It's about deciding that fear won't control you. It's about understanding that the discomfort of stepping forward is better than the regret of staying still. Some of you have been stuck in the same place for years, not because you don't have opportunities, but because you keep convincing yourself you're not ready. You've let fear disguise itself as wisdom. You've let doubt disguise itself as preparation. But deep down, you know you're supposed to step forward. Deep down, you know that the only thing keeping you from where you want to be is your own hesitation. At some point, you have to stop overthinking and start acting. At some point, you have to realize that waiting for the perfect moment is just an excuse. What if you started before you felt ready? What if you stopped letting your emotions dictate your decisions? What if you chose to believe that even if you don't feel prepared, you are still capable? Because here's the truth, you will figure it out as you go. You will learn along the way. You will grow into the person you need to be. The longer you wait, the more you reinforce the lie that you're not ready. But the moment you take action, the moment you take a step forward, you start proving to yourself that you are more ready than you thought. So stop waiting for the right feeling. Stop waiting for perfect certainty. Stop waiting for a confidence that can only be built through action. Readiness isn't a feeling, it's a decision, and you have the power to make that decision right now. Fear has a way of whispering in your ear, telling you that now isn't the right time. It convinces you that you're not ready, that you don't have what it takes, that if you step out, you'll fail. And the longer you listen, the more you start to believe it. The more you let fear speak, the louder it gets. The more you let it dictate your choices, the more it controls your life. Fear is always going to be there. It doesn't go away just because you wait. It doesn't shrink just because you ignore it. If anything, the more you avoid it, the bigger it grows. The more you let fear hold you back, the stronger its grip becomes. Some people live their whole lives waiting for the fear to disappear. They think that one day they'll wake up and finally feel bold enough, strong enough, confident enough to do what they've been putting off. But that day never comes, because fear isn't something you wait to overcome. It's something you walk through. You can't wait until you're fearless to take action. You take action while you're still afraid. If fear was a sign that you shouldn't do something, then no one would ever accomplish anything significant. If fear meant stop, then the greatest stories of breakthrough, success, and transformation would have never happened. Fear is not your enemy. It's proof that you're stepping into something bigger than yourself. The people who succeed in life don't succeed because they never feel afraid. They succeed because they refuse to let fear make their decisions for them. They don't wait for fear to go away before they step forward. They move despite it. Some of you have been letting fear dictate your future for far too long. Every time an opportunity presents itself, you hesitate. Every time you feel a push to do something new, you shrink back. Every time you think about stepping out, fear talks you out of it. But how long are you going to let fear control your life? How long are you going to keep letting the voice of doubt tell you what you can and can't do? How long are you going to keep letting anxiety talk you out of your purpose? You've been waiting for a time when you'll feel completely confident. But confidence doesn't come from waiting. It comes from stepping out while you're still afraid. The fear you feel isn't a stop sign. It's a signal that you're moving towards something that matters. Every major breakthrough in life comes with a moment of fear. Every big decision, every leap of faith, every step into the unknown, it all comes with uncertainty. But if you let that uncertainty stop you, you'll never experience the life you were meant to live. Think about the things you regret the most. They aren't the things you tried and failed at. They aren't the risks you took that didn't work out. No, the things you regret the most are the opportunities you didn't take. The moments when you let fear win, the chances you talked yourself out of. And if you're not careful, you'll keep repeating that cycle. You'll keep delaying. You'll keep waiting. You'll keep choosing comfort over courage. And before you know it, you'll wake up years from now realizing that fear stole time you can't get back. But it doesn't have to be that way. You have a choice. You can keep letting fear run your life, or you can decide that fear doesn't get to have the final say anymore. You're waiting for the fear to disappear, but what if instead of waiting for it to leave, you learned how to move forward with it? What if instead of trying to eliminate fear, you learned how to push through it? Because here's the thing, fear is just a feeling. It's not a fact. Fear tells you that you're not capable, but that doesn't make it true. Fear tells you that you're not ready, but that doesn't mean you're not. Fear tells you that if you try, you'll fail, but what if fear is wrong? What if you do have what it takes? What if you are ready? What if the thing you've been so afraid of isn't as impossible as you thought? Most of the time, fear is just a liar. It magnifies the worst case scenario. It convinces you that if you take the risk, everything will go wrong. But the truth is, even if things don't go exactly as planned, you will survive. You will learn, you will grow. Fear makes you feel like the worst outcome is failure. But the real failure is never trying at all. You can't let fear keep you paralyzed. You can't let it rob you of the life you were meant to live. You can't keep sitting on the sidelines while fear calls the shots. At some point, you have to decide that the risk of staying the same is greater than the risk of stepping out. Fear will always be there, but it doesn't have to control you. It doesn't have to define you. It doesn't have to hold you back. Because on the other side of fear is everything you've been praying for. On the other side of fear is the life you've been dreaming about. On the other side of fear is the version of you that you were always meant to become. So stop waiting for the fear to disappear. Stop waiting for the perfect moment. Stop letting fear dictate your future. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision that something else is more important than fear. And when you decide that your future, your purpose, your calling is more important than fear, nothing can stop you. You keep telling yourself that once you have a perfect plan, once you know exactly how everything will work out, once you have all the details figured out, then you'll move forward. But if you're waiting for everything to be perfectly in place before you start, you'll never start. Because perfection is an illusion. It's a lie that keeps you stuck. It's an excuse that convinces you to stay where it's comfortable, where it's predictable, where you don't have to take a risk. You don't need to have it all figured out before you take the first step. You don't need to have every answer before you begin. You just need to be willing to move forward in obedience, to trust that as you step, the path will become clear. Some of you have been delaying what you know you're supposed to do because you're waiting for certainty. You're waiting for a guarantee that everything will work out exactly as you hope, but life doesn't give guarantees. Life gives opportunities, and it's up to you whether you take them or not. If you wait until every detail is perfect, you'll miss the very thing you've been praying for. Because most of the time, what you're called to do won't come wrapped in certainty. It won't come with a step-by-step manual. It won't come with an instruction book that tells you exactly how everything will turn out. That's why faith matters more than perfection, because faith moves forward even when the plan isn't clear. Faith takes a step even when the destination feels uncertain. Faith says, I don't have all the answers, but I'm still going to trust that this is the right direction. Some of you are waiting for a perfect moment that doesn't exist. You think that once everything lines up exactly right, then you'll know it's time. But in reality, most of the biggest breakthroughs happen when things still feel messy, when things still feel incomplete, when things still feel uncertain. You don't need a perfect plan. You just need to take a step, because the moment you step out, the moment you move forward, things will start to fall into place in ways you couldn't have predicted. But if you never step out, you'll never see what was waiting for you on the other side of your hesitation. Obedience matters more than perfection. There are things you're meant to do, things you're meant to step into, but you keep hesitating because you're overanalyzing every little detail. You keep thinking that once you have a complete roadmap, once you have everything in order, once you have a flawless strategy, then you'll start. But sometimes the only way to figure out the next step is to take the first one. You can't always see the whole path from where you're standing. You can't always predict exactly how things will unfold, but you don't need to. You just need to trust that as you move forward, clarity will come. Some of you are stuck because you're waiting for a feeling of certainty. You think that when it's the right time, you'll feel completely confident. But that's not how it works. Most of the time, you'll feel uncertain. You'll feel nervous. You'll feel like you don't have enough information, but that doesn't mean you're supposed to wait. That means you're supposed to step. If you study the people who have made an impact, the people who have stepped into their purpose, the people who have seen transformation in their lives, you'll realize they didn't have it all figured out when they started. They didn't wait for a perfect plan. They didn't wait until everything made sense. They just took the next step in obedience, trusting that things would work out as they move forward. And looking back, they see now that the path became clear only because they had the courage to step before they saw the full picture. Some of you are afraid of making the wrong choice, so you make no choice at all. You're afraid of failing, so you do nothing. You're afraid of getting it wrong, so you stay in the same place, convincing yourself that waiting is the wise thing to do. But what if waiting is the real mistake? What if delaying is the real failure? What if the only thing keeping you from your next season is your own unwillingness to move forward without all the answers? You've been saying, I'll start when I know exactly what to do. But what if starting is the very thing that will reveal what to do next? You don't need to know the whole plan. You just need to take the next step. Obedience is more powerful than perfection because obedience leads to opportunities. The moment you take action, the moment you step out, the moment you choose to trust even when the plan isn't clear, that's when doors open. That's when things start to align in ways you couldn't have predicted. But as long as you stay stuck in overthinking, as long as you keep waiting for a level of certainty that will never come, as long as you let the fear of imperfection keep you from moving, you will stay exactly where you are. Some of you have been circling the same decision for months, maybe even years. You've been analyzing every detail, weighing every option, trying to calculate every possible outcome before you move forward. But at some point, you have to stop analyzing and start acting. At some point, you have to stop waiting and start walking. At some point, you have to realize that waiting for perfection is just another form of procrastination, right? If you're looking for a sign that it's time to move, here it is. If you're waiting for confirmation, this is it. If you're waiting for permission to stop overthinking and take action, consider this your confirmation. You don't have to get everything right. You don't have to know exactly how things will unfold. You just have to trust that obedience will take you further than perfection ever could. Because when you step out in obedience, doors open. When you move forward without all the answers, things start to shift. When you stop waiting for everything to be perfectly in place and just take a step, you'll realize that what you were looking for was already there. You just had to move to see it. You've been waiting for the perfect time, but the truth is the perfect time doesn't exist. You've been waiting to feel ready, but readiness isn't a feeling, it's a decision. You've been letting fear hold you back, but fear isn't a stop sign. It's a sign that you're stepping into something greater. You've been waiting to have a perfect plan, but perfection isn't the goal. Obedience is. At some point, you have to decide that where you're going is more important than where you've been, that moving forward, even with uncertainty, is better than staying stuck in hesitation. That fear may still be present, but it doesn't get to have control. That waiting is no longer an option when you know you're called to something greater. Stop waiting for the right time. The right time is now. The right time is the moment you decide to move. The right time is when you stop letting excuses hold you back and start stepping into the purpose that's been waiting for you all along.